Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jungle of Cincinnati Bengals podcast, brought to you by the Riverfront and the Blue Wire, folks. My name is Owen Timmerding, this week joined by Seth Shaner. Seth, it's been a minute since we've talked, and we finally have some tape on our favorite football team, Cincinnati Bengals. No more are we talking about random practice finds, random offseason acquisitions. We finally have football on the field, green grass, painted end zones, the whole 9 yards. Was just preseason, so let's not overreact. But
I'd kind of like to go back a week when we were kind of wondering if this defense actually had something.
Yeah,
I'm not saying one game will determine its fate, but the camp practice, reports were a lot more glowing than what we end up seeing on the field.
Yeah, I agree. I was a little honestly surprised on how the defense looked. You'd like to think that they'd be able to, and really this is prefaced by the fact that they played against the entire Philly second stringers. Like this would be that's the glaring point in all this. If they had been facing a couple starters, maybe I would be a little less critical of the whole situation. But the thing that just stands out is that they got dog walked by Tanner McKee for 3 quarters. And the only bright spot was the two things that stood out the most were, oh my God, Shamar Stewart might be really good. And the Bengals need Trey Hendrickson more than anyone right now on their team.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, no Cam Taylor-Britt, no Geno Stone, no Trey Hendrickson, as you mentioned.
No BJ Hill.
Yeah, no BJ Hill. So you think about that, that's almost half what you hope will be the starting lineup by week 1. Certainly they need to get Trey in there before too long to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, my prediction when some of the beat writers started throwing around dates as far as wondering when Trey would get the deal done, my prediction about 3 weeks ago was August 15th. So I'm going on.
Right.
I'm going on the record. I'm going August 15th. That'll be after preseason game 2, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's where I am with it. We'll see. I think he's never been happy with his contracts. We've discussed that many times. But I think he also has a yearning to be on the field.
Yeah,
so,
you can tell.
And he knows to get on the field properly, he needs to get on the field for practice.
It just
up to the season.
We haven't really heard anything about Hendrickson, I feel like, in like a week and a half. It's just that he's just not been playing. Like there's been talks and nothing has changed, or maybe it's silently coming together. I feel like we're at that point now where we heard so much about it. Now it's getting kind of masked almost by the fact that we have real football going on.
Yeah.
Which I guess I'll take it. But at the same time, like, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me from the preseason game was that Trey Hendrickson is an essential operation of this team. I take back stuff I've said that he's replaceable. At some point I said that. That was at least off the phone, off the camera with friends and stuff like that. But I just feel like the preseason obviously is the best time for this defense to mesh. It's a new defense, new system. Would you have liked to seen a little bit better after, like you said, the only thing we heard coming out of camp was that the Bengals ones were struggling to move the ball against this defense, and that's just not what we saw at all on Thursday. Well,
I guess the problem really becomes he might be replaceable, but is he replaceable by Joseph Osai or Murphy? So,
yeah.
That's what it comes down to. And the fact that they just don't have the depth, even in the interior of the line, that you'd like to have. So you need all hands on deck.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the first team offense was amazing. I suppose we expected that.
Yeah.
And we can complain and whine about procedural penalties and special teams miscues, which there were plenty.
Oh, yeah.
But that stuff matters in that you'd rather not see it, but it doesn't matter yet because it's not the real season yet. So I guess that's kind of where I am with that. Certainly, would you like to – the only really good team out there that to me, and I was reminded by a friend of mine, he texted me the other day and he goes, I know you're not a gambling man, but he's like, I've got some stakes on whether the Ravens win another preseason game. And it's like the only good team in the NFL that really tries to win preseason games is the Ravens.
Yeah.
Like the Browns are the, off-season and preseason champs like every year.
Yeah.
And then the real season starts. So
Yeah.
I'm not mad if they lose a game. They cut it to 7 and all that. But to your point, I don't think we're going to see Tanner McKee take too many snaps that are meaningful in the regular season unless Philly's in a world of hurt injury-wise.
Here's something you briefly talked about it. I think it's worth talking about. It's how well the offense looked, and they played a quarter. Obviously, it's versus the Eagles twos, but I think we've talked ad nauseum about how the slow starts have haunted the Bengals for pretty much the whole Joe Burrow career, when they've not played guys or he's been coming off an injury and not been playing in the preseason. And yes, granted, he played a possession last year in the preseason and he threw a touchdown. I think it's very different that they played 2 full series. And I tell you what, I think Burrow looked incredible. And I don't like overreacting about preseason games, but he was on another level last year. I think if he's got more in the tank, I think we saw some parts of that just on the 2 drives he led on Thursday.
Well, I'm going to knock on wood.
Yeah.
Right now. We've said it so many times. Can we just get this man a training camp and a preseason without something to deal with?
Mm-hmm.
And as of now, I knocked on the wood. As of now,
I just did it right now.
That's where we are with Joe Burrow. Now, we're going to be really upset come week 1 if they lose to the Browns 42-38.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you score 38 points in an NFL game, you should win.
You should win easily.
If you score 30 or more points in an NFL game, you should win.
Yeah.
So I guess then that's when we turn our focus on this defense again.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, Jamar Chase, I watched the first half of that game at a restaurant. I got together with some guys that were they were seniors when I was a freshman at Ohio State, and they were student radio. And so they were kind of my mentors, so to speak. And I haven't seen them together in the same room for probably 20 plus years. And we got together, and one's a Browns fan and the other one is, I guess, a Cowboys fan, but he's kind of reported on the Browns quite a bit. He's more of a Northeast Ohio guy. And we sit down and you just watch Chase, and these guys are drooling over Jamar Chase and admitting. And the one Browns friend. I mean, I remember even in 2004, I ran into him at a high school football game, and that's when the Bengals had just released their new uniforms. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "What are they wearing, Seth? Those are ridiculous." Now, I didn't think they were ridiculous, but he's a Browns fan, so he has to give some shade. And they were both just like, "Yeah, that guy's amazing." And it's unbelievable how good he is. And he's ours. He's on our team.
He is. And he's locked up, too.
He's locked up. He's going to be there for the foreseeable future. He doesn't really want to play in preseason games, it doesn't seem like, but he put on a show. And I got to tell you, Kylie Ringo, that guy's not covering Jamar Chase.
No.
Listen, as an Ohio State fan in 2022, he could not cover Marvin Harrison. Yeah. He could not cover Emeka Egbuka. He couldn't not cover anybody for Ohio State.
Yeah.
And so he's definitely not covering Jamar Chase. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Better than all those guys.
Right.
It's funny. He looked like he was jogging on his touchdown. I saw it.
But that's how he is. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw the catch and I was like, "Oh yeah, we scored." I was pretty pumped up that he had a touchdown at least, just because it was fun seeing the Burrow and Chase connection again. But then when I watched the highlight back 2 or 3 more times, I turned to my girlfriend's dad. I'm like, did he just walk? He caught it on the 20 and then spun and then kind of just skipped into the end zone. It didn't look like he was putting any, and he still was easily in. He's just
one of those guys.
Athlete.
He's just one of those guys that everything else around him looks slow.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore it doesn't always look like he has to try.
No.
And I think of several of the moves he's put on Baltimore Ravens secondaries over the years. Into the blender, into the spin cycle. Whatever phrases the announcers use, it's really fun. And of course, that toe tapping catch, when you're in a sports bar and you don't really have the sound on and you look up and I'm like, oh, he's out of bounds. And then it's like, no, they're moving the sticks. And it's like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
And then you get to see the replays a few times there with a bunch of people around you, and everybody's just in awe. And again, like, you don't want to be the team that has the flashy player but isn't good as a team. Like,
Mhm.
these Bengals need to get back to playoffs. They need to make another run. But it is certainly gratifying to have maybe top 2, 3 player in the league. You know,
Yeah.
if you're not placing the importance on quarterbacks that typically is, Jamar Chase might be the best player in the league right now. And so, like, that's just really cool to have. Now, when we had Chad Johnson, but nothing else, it was kind of like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think Chad was ever considered a top 3 to 5 player in the league. So
J-
that's what you have in this guy.
Jamar Chase is just money. Like he literally, like you know what you're getting, 100% out of Jamar, and I'm happy we're past the contract thing because he kind of got the diva label, in my opinion, from like during the first 2 weeks of last year when he wasn't great, in my opinion, when he seemed shaky because he hadn't been practicing, and we knew we had this contract thing looming over his head, that he kind of got a bad rap. But now, like, it's just so all business with him all the time. And it's just such a blessing that we said, like, he's ours. He's a Bengal and he's not going anywhere. And I think it's so awesome that him and Burrow now have this connection too, where they always are on the same page. Always on
Absolutely.
the same page. There's
Well,
never an opportunity, there's never a play that I see between him and Joe that it's like a miscommunication or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you all when Burrow throws it in Chase's direction, you almost expect it to be caught at this point, and no matter if it's in his catch radius.
yeah, and honestly, it's been like that
Oh,
since
since day one.
Chase got drafted. I
Yeah,
mean, they obviously worked so hard at LSU. I remember Joe, he always said he got an education at Ohio State, and then he majored in football at LSU.
yeah,
And he had to take grad school classes and things like that. But, like, that idea that he and Jamar were just working
yeah.
nonstop, and you see that between what Joe and Jamar did from 2018 to
Mhm.
2019. When, I mean, 2019 was just unbelievable. One thing you mentioned, and I guess I'm gonna flip this a little bit. You
Mhm.
mentioned earlier Trey Hendrickson, and it's kind of gone quiet.
Yeah.
When you think about these things, number one, the story initially was he's not here.
Mhm.
Number two, the story was he came. Is he going to make a big stink? He didn't really make a stink. He did one interview, right?
Yeah.
And then number three, we haven't heard from him.
Mhm.
And there's all this other stuff going on, including offensive players playing, first team players
Yeah.
playing in the preseason game. So, then you roll into, again, does he keep holding in? I hate that word. Or, and then does he get to week one and just take the field because they need a warm body?
Mhm.
And he's just not quite there, a la what you just said about Chase.
Jamar Chase.
So that's when we talk about it again.
Yeah.
All right. So right now the focus is on offense looks awesome, defense looks the same, special teams is scary.
Mhm.
And there we are. 1 week, you just start talking, and there's not that much to talk about, and there's nothing that meaningful to talk
Yeah.
about. But here we are.
One thing about the special teams that I want to bring up, obviously, I thought there was a bunch of, like you said, lots of error, a lot of missed opportunities. There's a couple field goals that there's one field goal in like the third or fourth quarter that Jake Elliott or the Eagles, I think it's Elliott still,
Mm-hmm.
missed. But the Bengals got a penalty on it, and then it ended up turning into a touchdown later in the drive. But it's like mental errors like that. But one thing that did stand out to me was McPherson.
Yeah.
And I thought his kicks looked a lot better in this preseason game than they did at times last year. If you remember correctly, I feel like he's all like, especially last year when he'd miss, it would really knuckle the
Mm-hmm.
ball. And he didn't have any of that spin at all. I feel like this year not this year. That's saying like he's played 5 games, but in what I saw, the sample size I really liked from McPherson, and I saw that online too. That the way he was angling or something, the way the ball was coming off his foot was a lot different than it was at times last year. He just, to me, looked more comfortable, and the ball just looked a lot more crisp coming off this year than last year, where I feel like even on some of his makes, it would kind of knuckle in or kind of just like lose momentum at the end of the kick, if you know what I mean.
I think you're right. I mean, all you can do is go by what he's saying right
Yeah.
now. And obviously it did look better in that one preseason game, but he's saying he worked on some things. And then remember, the operation with snapper and holder and all that is hopefully more smooth because it's going to be more familiar this coming year, assuming they still have, the who is it? Inomitis is got some competition in camp, I think. But beyond that, it's Rico's going to be handling the snaps and as far as putting them down. So
you're right. It's not a rookie placeholder anymore either. So it's
and hopefully, certainly as a rookie, he's got so much, his head's probably swimming, and
oh yeah.
so you think about that, and I think that's what I mean. Any position, certainly some are easier than others, but even like you think about in college, if a quarterback starts as a true freshman, well, we don't really think he's going to be able to lead a team, right, to at least a championship or something like that. Whereas, well, Jeremiah Smith can go in and start as a freshman and he plays receiver and they'll figure it out. But there's certain positions, and you got to believe punter, despite the fact that we probably think it's pretty low on the totem pole, punter is pretty important as far as getting everything done correctly. But he's got to learn how the kicker wants it. Where does he want it? How does he want it held? How does he want it angled? And he's got to catch the snap, as we saw, right? So there's a lot there, and you hope if you can. That's why these guys, these long snappers, and then these punters / holders. That's why you hope they can stay around forever. As long time. Kevin Huber was there for a very long time.
Yeah, we didn't really have a lot of. I guess it seems like the Bengals always had at least the same kicker lots of years in a row. It's not like we were some revolving door. For as bad as Nugent was at times, he was still the Bengals kicker for 5 years. So it's like he was good enough to keep around. It's not like some teams, guy has one bad game and then he's out the door. And they'll have 3 kickers throughout the year.
Bengals have even the snappers. I blank on the names. What was it? Brad St. Louis that got the yips, and is that when Clark Harris came in? And then Clark Harris was there almost the same amount of time as Kevin Huber. So like those parts of the operation remains consistent.
Are important. Yeah. The so in a preseason game, you're always looking to see how your draft picks are, how they pan out. Obviously, we saw Shamar taking second team reps, so he played a lot of the game. And the 2 names that I had stand out on my Twitter and what I saw just watching the game was obviously Shamar Stewart. I thought he looked pretty good. But Dylan Fairchild, 3rd round pick of Georgia. He's kind of in the talk of Bengals camp offensive line wise. 89 on the PFF grade is what I just read too. Did they find did they finally draft a competent guard or an offensive line production? Because it feels like I read in this article, the Bengals have not been able to do that for a decade. And it seems like they might be going in the right direction with Fairchild, pairing him with Mims as well in these last 2 drafts. But I thought Fairchild was incredible.
Well, and to me, and this might be my big school bias going here, but if you're going to go draft someone, go to Georgia and find, there were multiple, and obviously they got Mims the year before, so they had seen Fairchild a lot on film. And then it just seems like the coaching staff, Peters really seemed to glom on to Fairchild, and that's the thing. You want the guy to fit with what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
So he's coming in, and again, I'm with you. Usually if you don't hear about him much, then you know he did a good job. But also he was a key blocker on a couple big running plays, and Chase Brown looked great. So I was more than happy with it. And again, I go back to that big school thing, aside from like Billy Price, who we may chat about here in a few minutes about something I proposed to you over a text the other day. I'm usually like, okay, did the big school that played the big games, that played good teams against other future NFL players, how did those guys do then? And to me, when you're talking about offensive linemen, that's kind of like I'll lean on that and go to town with that. And to me, Fairchild, I think it's a great pick. I think he's hopefully, knock on wood again, going to do a great job. And again, he could be your day one starter and start every game if he's healthy.
Absolutely. And another guy that we got to see a lot because he played a lot was Brooks, the running back they drafted in the 6th round. And obviously they cut Zach Moss. They have Chase Brown, so they have a starter. And P. Ryan is signed. But like, what are we getting out of him is more what I'm thinking too. I liked what I saw from Brooks. He, again, was just one of those guys that kind of, when you're watching these preseason games, you're kind of just seeing if anything pops off the screen. Fairchild was one. Shamar was another. And I thought Brooks looked pretty good too. Like if he ends up being some sort of backup running back option, even behind Pirine, if Chase Brown needs a break, I feel like we're at the point now where the Bengals offense has the opportunity to be so crafty that they can use a rookie Brooks in some shape or form in certain ways. Now, who knows if that's true, because we got one good game out of Chris Evans a couple years ago, and then he didn't play. And then he played another good game, and they didn't play. So it's like, who really knows what the Bengals are going to do with these late round running backs, because we've thought we've had it figured out before when we've not. But like I said, like you when you're in the third, fourth quarter of these preseason games and it's just guys you don't know about and guys just fighting for roster spots, if one of your picks that you made, your last pick too, is jumping off the table, of jumping off the screen, like you notice that if you're just even casually watching.
You do, and I guess my theory, and I think their theory too, unless you're talking about a day one starter like a Mims or, like Shamar Stewart, he might not be a starter per se necessarily, depends on how things fall, but I think in the long run, they think he's a starter. Usually, if you take these guys, such as running back or receiver in those mid to later rounds, you're thinking if this guy really pops, then you can save a little money down the line because you don't have to maybe pay a veteran to come in at a higher rate or something like that. But like, let me just say this: like, if Andre Yosivas came in and just was a stud from day one, which is very unlikely out of the Ivy League, I know, but there is a different world where you didn't have to pay T. Higgins.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was unlikely. I think Charlie Jones, like if he came and became a great slot receiver, maybe you didn't have to go sign Mike Gesicki.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you didn't have to rely on somebody else to return some of these punts or kicks because Jones would have been the guy. Now, that doesn't – you can't bank on that happening with a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh rounder. I understand that. But running backs especially, you can get a late-round pick that pops.
Absolutely.
And, I don't know how that fits in because we don't know what he is in pass pro, right? Yeah. Like, how good is he at protecting, picking up a blitz? He doesn't seem that big to me.
No, I think he's kind of tiny.
So he's probably not he's not your prototypical back that's going to get all the carries. So we just have to find out, I guess, what his role might be. But if he could prove good in pass pro at all, I mean, a year from now, you don't have to go out and sign a Pirine or a Zach Moss.
Yeah.
You've got him built in, and he's on a second year of a very, very team-friendly deal at that point.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I want to transition to something we talked about. So preface this with, a few years ago, you already mentioned Billy Price, probably one of the biggest Bengals draft bust in my generation of watching Bengals football. The Bengals were able to flip him to the New York Giants for a B.J. Hill, who now has become a staple of the Bengals defense over these last 4 or 5 years. You proposed the idea, and I want you to elaborate on it a little more, of swinging some sort of Jake Browning, Tanner Hudson deal to find someone to do some patchwork on the defense. So I want you to give your prefaces or give your take, and then I'll give what my thoughts on the situation are too.
So again, if you start with Billy Price, you're right. It was a big mistake. And again, it's funny, as an Ohio State grad and fan, I always am leery of, am I letting my fanhood be too far as how good I think they're going to be in the pros? A lot of times I actually don't really want the Bengals to take Ohio State guys because I
just want to cheer for them in their own way.
So there's that. I definitely don't like it when they go to the Steelers, but that's another thing. But anyway, he wasn't a good pick, but they redeemed themselves. Duke Tobin completely redeemed himself. I mean, that paid off the Super Bowl year.
Yeah.
That's the year he came, and, he did a great job. Larry Ogunjobi and he were back there together, and they would flip flat back and forth, and B.J. Hill's become a mainstay. He's a leader on this defense. So as I'm watching that game the other day, knowing they just signed Noah Fant, my first thought is Tanner Hudson's getting a lot of reps, in part because Fant's not playing, right? And he's not ready to go yet and things like that. But put it on tape for teams to see.
Yeah.
And he's a receiving tight end. And again, swing a deal that might get you the next BJ Hill. And
Yeah.
I threw in Browning almost knee jerk, right? Browning did not look good the other night. And local favorite, again, I'm not a UC guy, so
Yeah.
I'm not
Neither am I.
a
So
fan.
we can go
But
any way you want on this.
Desmond Ritter
Yeah.
looked pretty good in
Yeah.
his very, very, very late game opportunities. Again, first preseason game. I told the waiter at the restaurant when he said, "What happened to the Bengals lead? They were ahead last time I walked through." I said, "Hey, they're going against a bunch of guys who'll be bagging groceries in a couple weeks." You know, the
Yeah.
old line from Major League or whatever. So, no, you can't jump to conclusions here, but I do think there is a market out there for Jake Browning.
Yeah.
There's a market possibly for Tanner Hudson. If they felt like Ritter could go ahead and step into that role, and I'm not saying the same deal either. I'm saying, if somebody comes needing a quarterback, then maybe that's what you do. The Bengals are very loath to do that, I think, because Browning knows the playbook so much better than Ritter.
Yeah. I agree. I trust me. I think Tanner Hudson's probably the odd man out here. I mean, the tight end room is crowded. Like it's Gesicki, who probably isn't really playing tight end, like a true tight end, and then Drew Sample. So there's a lot of bodies in there and a lot of mouths to feed. Do I think Sample is a mouth that should be fed? No. Is Hudson probably a guy who also, honestly, hand up, when Hudson came in and played a couple games 2 years ago, and he was, remember, like for 4 or 5 weeks, not this last season, but the season before, where Hudson was always in on like the first play, and Burrow would hit him for like a 5-yard catch or something, like a curl. Like I can picture this, like it happened every time. I was like, man, and then Burrow would hit him a couple times throughout the game. I was like, I think Burrow kind of likes these like big stockier guys at tight end who can move a little bit. Obviously, I just described a tight end, but I was like, Burrow kind of likes this kid. So I'd bet on him to score a touchdown and stuff like that. And then he didn't work. But I think he's the guy to move from the tight end room. I think he's sort of valuable. I think you could probably make the case that someone would be willing and want to pick him up because I think he's a decent offensive piece for a team, especially where he doesn't need to be the number one guy. So I like what you're thinking. Especially moving him would be valuable to the Bengals because you probably could get some project-esque kind of guy that if it works out, it works out.
Well, some team out there has too many defensive tackles.
Yeah.
Or too many safeties or whatever position or too many guards maybe on the offensive side. And that's what you're trading. Like that's what the Giants needed an offensive lineman and they thought, hey, this guy's a first rounder. The Giants probably had a first round grade on Billy Price as well, his draft year. And so they probably said, we need an offensive lineman. Let's go get a guy that we thought looked pretty good. Maybe a new bit of scenery will do him some good. He was out of the league within 2 years from then. So it's not as if it worked. And going back to the tight ends, the reason, like Eric All's injury last year, actually, there's a huge ripple effect because Drew Sample is only a blocker. So Drew Sample in there with Gesicki, or I mean, you might even see Drew Sample, Fant, and Gesicki in the game, and basically, then you're definitely saying Gesicki's a slot receiver. So Sample, because Eric All could do it all. That's what you're missing. Because
it really stinks that he's hurt.
Fant does more of the tight end-y stuff than Gesicki does, but he doesn't do what Sample does.
Yeah.
And Hudson is more of a Gesicki/Fant because he's not going to be the guy that really gets after it. They call it what? Inline, right?
Yeah.
So the Eric All thing looked really cool for about 30 seconds.
It did.
You know what I mean? Because he was ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
And he was going to give you this position. Like he was going to give you this spot where we don't have to keep Sample around anymore. Or we don't have to worry about, whether Gesicki is a slot receiver or he's a tight end, because actually we have a guy that can play tight end, the true tight end position. So that's where this all comes from. And I think your breakdown is perfect because it says Hudson's a guy out because he's too much like Fant and probably more like Gesicki than he is like Sample.
Yeah. I just think there's also no way. I mean, I guess they signed Ritter. I like it's hard not to want to keep Jake Browning because he's been around. You know what I mean? And what we've seen from Jake Browning on an NFL field with Bengals weapons proves to be better than what we've seen of Desmond Ritter play in an NFL game as a true starter, like period. So I think I lean more towards, and in this all hypothetical world we've made up, I lean more towards keeping Browning for just consistency's sake because he at least did a serviceable job when Burrow went down 2 years ago. And worst case scenario, if something like that happens again, I'd rather have the guy who you've seen with your guys play okay than a first round bust who has been a mess at his other two stops and not looked like anything close to a competent NFL quarterback.
Yeah, but I think we'd both agree if Joe goes down, as well as Browning did play a couple years ago.
Yeah. That's not,
season's over, man.
Yeah. No, I agree.
That's where we are. I mean, so I guess, and I don't want to save them money just because, but
yeah,
I'm assuming Ritter's deal is much lower than the deal they had to give Browning to keep him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worth like if you're Duke Tobin, you've got to kick around the waiver wire / hey, you're about to have to cut somebody. Let's see if we can make a deal right before the waiver wire happens.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the two guys the Bengals have so far who could be odd man out if the right deal came along.
So do you think one of them gets moved by the end of training camp before the season starts?
If one got moved, my guess would be more like you think. It would be Hudson. But on the other hand, teams around the league might look at it and say, you've got to cut that guy anyway. We'll just wait.
Yeah.
So it's just, does a team lose a pass catching tight end to injury and need a guy? And if that happens, then does that same team have a player that the Bengals need that they're going to have to cut? And that's all we're talking about. We're talking like 48th and 49th guy on the roster here. We're not, I mean, even Tanner Hudson, if he makes the team, he's
not going to play.
Right.
I'm even thinking more like if Ritter gets cut, like who's picking him up? Because we saw him, he was a free agent forever when the Bengals just randomly signed him.
He's been bad.
Yeah.
And I guess, so a guy like him gets on that crossroads where he's a failed starter in two places. And I don't know how much of a chance the Raiders gave him, but he did start games.
Mm-hmm.
He's a failed starter at two places. Does he have the gumption to want to fight for roster spots and become a career backup from here on out? Because he can make a lot of money being a career backup.
Yeah.
But whereas like Jake Browning fought tooth and nail just for the chance to be on a team.
Yeah.
I just think those two things are looked at differently.
I agree. I think it's interesting. I mean, I really hope we're not at a point this season where we need to talk about who the Bengals backup quarterback is.
Right.
So
right.
It would be like everything would have had to go wrong at this point if either one of those guys sees the field. But it's something to look at. Like you said, I mean, I don't think Browning looked good. You said it too.
No.
And granted, I didn't watch a lot of the end of the game, so I missed the Ritter touchdown, but I saw the highlight and it was a decent throw. And Tanner Hudson had 2 touchdowns. He played the whole game, pretty much.
Basically, I mean, and what, Gesicki and Fant didn't play, so there just aren't that many tight ends on the roster beyond, when you get past those guys. My thing is, Ritter looks like he's got a better arm maybe than Browning. But again, I go back to Browning has the system, and Ritter's admitted he doesn't have the whole playbook yet. Like, he just doesn't.
I wouldn't expect him to. He's been on the Bengals for 2.5 weeks.
If they signed him in February, maybe. But
yeah.
No.
Also, there was something else I wanted to bring up. Oh, well, because I was thinking about career backups, and I was watching the Browns-Panthers game. How about Andy Dalton? Just like what an awesome career this guy has churned out for himself. He could have totally lost steam after Burrow replaced him here, and instead he's just kind of kicked the can down the road, and he was pretty much a primary starter for the Saints and the Panthers for 2 years. And I think the real reason the Panthers, this is just totally digressed from Bengals talk, but in my heart of hearts, I believe the Panthers are keeping him around to mentor Bryce Young.
I think you're right. And I mean, I already mentioned he's not just a failed starter. He was a longtime starter.
He was a good starter in the
He's
NFL
had to
too.
come to grips with the fact that he's a backup for. I mean, he got to start some games last year. He started ahead of Justin Fields. Fields' rookie year.
Yeah.
But what you have to also know is like there's guys like that. There's a Mark Brunell out there. There's certain guys who did start for a long time who became backups. And I don't know. Does he love football that much? It must be it. I mean, he made over $100 million in his career.
I looked up his contract to see how much career earnings he's had, and it's like 112.
Yeah.
So he's doing okay. Like, it's good for him.
He doesn't have to still be out there.
No.
But he loves football. And like Ryan Fitzpatrick did that for a few years, right? And he wasn't the level of a starter as Andy Dalton was, but he probably didn't need to keep going, and he just kept going.
Yeah. Any other Bengals stuff? Oh, Jermaine Burton didn't practice today. Undisclosed injury.
I saw that. Yeah, undisclosed injury. The Geno Stone thing scares me a little bit. It's not that I like Geno Stone that much, but he is the starter.
We need to see.
He needs to be healthy. So those are two I'll be keeping an eye on. Burton, my buddy texted me the other day saying something, and I said, hey, just let me know if he made it to the stadium. Like if you want to pick him to have the most yards, which is funny because Chase blew that door down, even though he only played 2 series, I think. So, but no, I hope Burton is a model citizen, and we could definitely use him.
I agree.
Both in kicker, punt, and as a downfield threat. So,
if he at his very least could just kick return punts, because I think he's probably better than Charlie Jones. Well, he actually had a nice Burton had a nice little return in the preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
So to the point where I was again like those guys that just jump off the screen, I was like, all right, like please just do this. Like you don't need to do anything crazy.
He's probably, let's be honest, he's probably like a second round talent.
He is, yeah.
I mean,
he was a first round talent, but then he got
yeah. So he's just got to, if he is hurt, hopefully it's not a long term thing, but he's got to keep grinding and stacking days, and then maybe he comes through when they need him.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on your end? I can't think of anything else that we saw. I mean, obviously, this is again stuff just kind of trickles out of Bengals camp every day. So
no, and I told my boys I go do this show and then we go looking for dinner. So I think they're probably.
All right. I feel I get them when you keep it so long. Yeah.
No, we're good. This is. Hey, we're about to hit 38 minutes, and we thought we might have 10.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
There you go.
All right, Seth. Thanks for popping on today for a little bit.
Awesome. Who day, guys?
Who day. Thanks, everyone.